Hey, welcome back. Today's story is one of those that starts with something small, a single moment at a New Year's party. One kiss. Harmless, right? Except 6 days later, that same person walked into his new boss's office as the boss's wife. What happens next is messy, human, and honestly hard to look away from. So get comfortable and let's get into it.
I kissed a woman at a New Year's party. Just once. A stupid, harmless midnight kiss, the kind everybody does when the countdown hits 0 and somebody's close enough. 6 days later, she walked into my new boss's office and sat down on the edge of his desk like she owned it. Because she did. She was his wife. And that's where it started. That's where my whole life quietly walked off a cliff, and I didn't even hear it fall until months later. Let me back up. My name's Rick Nowak. I'm 34, I live in Hamilton, Ontario, the East End, near the water, in a one-bedroom that still had my ex-wife's picture hooks in the wall a year after she left. That's the kind of guy I was that winter. The kind who doesn't fill the holes back in. The kind who just moves the couch so he doesn't have to look at them. Divorced at 33. That was me. Danielle and I weren't some big dramatic explosion. It was worse than that, honestly. It was just a slow leak. We ran out of things to say, and then we ran out of reasons to pretend we hadn't. And one Sunday, she packed 2 suitcases and said she'd come back for the rest. And she did, on a Tuesday, when I was at work, so I wouldn't have to watch. So by that December, I was, coasting. Working, sleeping, watching hockey with the sound off. My buddy Kyle kept telling me I was turning into one of those guys, and I'd say, "What guys?" And he'd say, "The ones who go quiet, man. The ones who disappear in plain sight." Kyle's the reason I even went out that night. New Year's Eve, he throws this party every year at his place up in the mountain. That's what we call the escarpment here, the mountain, even though anybody from a real mountain would laugh at us. Anyway, he threw this party and he basically told me I wasn't allowed to say no. He said, "Ricky, you show up for 1 hour. 1. You hate it, you leave, I never bug you again." So I went. And I want to be honest about something, because this whole thing only makes sense if I'm honest. I didn't go looking for anything. I wasn't on the prowl. I wasn't lonely in that hungry way. I was lonely in the boring way. The way where you just want to be in a warm room with noise in it so your own head shuts up for a couple hours. The party was crowded. People I half knew, friends of Kyle's from the gym, some neighbors, a lot of faces I'd never see again. I had a couple beers. I stood by the kitchen island because that's where the quiet people always end up, near the food, where you can pretend you're busy. And that's where she was. Standing by the counter, holding a glass of wine she clearly wasn't drinking, looking exactly as out of place as I felt. She had this, she wasn't some knockout out of a movie. That's not what this is. She was just real. Tired, pretty. Dark hair pulled back, a little messy. She had a laugh line on one side deeper than the other, like she'd spent a lot of her life smiling politely at things that weren't funny. I said something dumb about the dip, like, "The spinach one's the safe bet." That was my line. 34 years old. The spinach one's the safe bet. And she laughed, a real one, surprised out of her, and said, "You look like you were doing recon over here." Her name was Marnie. That's all she gave me, Marnie. We talked for, I don't even know, 40 minutes, an hour? About nothing. About how neither of us knew more than 3 people there. About how she'd almost not come. About winter, and how Hamilton gray hits different, that flat steel mill sky. She told me she used to paint and stopped and didn't know why she stopped. I told her I used to have a wife and, same thing, didn't know why I stopped. And I swear that's all it was. 2 people leaning on a kitchen counter, feeling less alone for an hour. Then Kyle started the countdown. 10, 9, everybody's yelling, somebody's spilling something, the TV's got the ball drop going. And at 0, the whole room kind of collapses into hugs and cheers, and she was right there. And she turned and looked at me, and there was this half a second where we both just decided. And she kissed me, or I kissed her. I honestly can't tell you which, and I've thought about it more than I'd like to admit. It wasn't some big, passionate thing. It was soft, and it was quick. And when we pulled back, we both laughed, embarrassed, the way you do. She said, "Happy New Year, spinach guy." And somebody grabbed her arm, a friend, pulling her toward the door, coats already on, and she was gone, out into the cold. I didn't get a number. I didn't even get a last name. And I told myself that was the right ending to it. A nice thing that happened. A little proof I was still a person. I thought about her the whole drive home, and then I put it in a drawer in my head and figured I'd never see her again. 6 days later, I met my new boss. I'd been at the same distribution warehouse for years, logistics coordination. Basically, I make sure the right pallets go on the right trucks and the whole thing doesn't turn into a parking lot of angry drivers. It's not glamorous, but I'm good at it. And that January, they'd brought in a new regional manager to modernize operations, which is the phrase they use right before they make everybody's life harder. His name was Doug Renner. Doug was one of those guys. Big handshake, calls everybody chief and boss and big man, so he never has to remember your name. Loud in the meeting, first one laughing at his own joke. The kind of guy who's your best friend on the floor and a completely different animal the second the door closes. I didn't like him, but I needed the job, so I did what you do. I nodded. I said, "Sounds good, Doug." End of my first week, he calls a little meet and greet in his office. Him, me, a couple other coordinators. And halfway through, the door opens and a woman leans in with a coffee and says, "You forgot this in the car. You left it on the..." And it's her. It's Marnie. And for a second, the whole room went underwater. Doug's still talking, somebody's still nodding, and I'm just frozen, watching this woman I kissed at midnight 6 days ago set a coffee down on my new boss's desk and kiss him on the cheek. And Doug says, without even looking up, "Guys, my wife, Marnie, this is the crew." And her eyes came up and found mine, and I watched her face do the exact same thing mine was doing. That drop, that cold water drop in your stomach. She recovered faster than me. She smiled, this bright company smile, and said, "Nice to meet you all," like reading it off a card. Nice to meet you all. I don't remember the rest of the meeting. I remember my own hands. I remember thinking over and over, it was nothing. It was a New Year's kiss. Everybody does it. It means nothing. And knowing, somewhere underneath, that I was already lying to myself about the size of it. Because if it was really nothing, my heart wouldn't have been going like that.
Okay, hold on. Put yourself in his shoes for a second. You kiss a stranger at midnight. 6 days later, she's your boss's wife. What do you even do with that? Personally, I'd have kept my mouth shut and prayed. But keep watching, because it's what he does next that changes everything.
I figured that was the end of it. Awkward secret, buried, we both move on, I never bring it up, she never brings it up, fine. Except 3 days later, she was waiting by my car. Parking lot, end of shift, dark by 4:30 like it always is here in January, and she's just standing there, coat wrapped around her, breath fogging, and she says, I needed to say it once so it's not sitting in my chest. I didn't know who you were. I would never have. I'm not that person. And I said, I know. Me neither. It's okay. It was midnight. It was nothing. And she nodded, and neither of us moved. And that was the moment we should have both just walked away. That was the exit. And we stood in it, and we didn't take it. Because then she said, "Can I tell you something stupid? That was the nicest hour I've had in about 2 years." And God help me, I felt the exact same way. And I told her so.
And right there, that was the exit. That was the moment to walk away and never look back. He even says it himself. But nobody ever takes that exit, do they? That's the scary part. We always think we've got more time to stop.
I'm not going to sit here and dress it up. What started that night in the parking lot became something, slowly. It wasn't some torrid, it wasn't what people picture. For weeks, it was just talking. She'd text me something she saw that made her think of the spinach dip. I'd text back. We'd take our lunch at the same time, separately, at this awful diner 2 blocks from the warehouse, where nobody from work ever went because the coffee tasted like a penny. We'd sit in a back booth and just talk. About her marriage, mostly. About how Doug was one man at the barbecue and another man at home. She never said he hit her. It wasn't that, I want to be fair, even now. It was colder than that. He'd just erased her, made her small, corrected her in front of people, made every single thing her fault in a quiet, reasonable voice that made her think she was the crazy one. And I knew that voice, because I'd used a version of it on Danielle at the end, when I was checked out and didn't have the guts to say so. So I knew both sides of that room, and maybe that's why I couldn't stay away. I felt like I finally understood something too late, and here was a chance to be the guy I should have been the first time. That's the lie you tell yourself. That it's about being good, when really you're just falling. And yeah, it became more than talking. I'm not going to walk you through it. That's between me and my own conscience. But there were evenings. There was an afternoon she was supposed to be at her sister's. There was a version of the two of us that only existed in the gray light of my apartment with the blinds down, and it felt more like home than my actual marriage ever had. And that's the part I'm most ashamed of, because it means I knew exactly what I was doing. I told myself we'd figure it out, that she was going to leave him, that we were just waiting for the right time, and once she was out, it'd be clean, it'd be real. We could be 2 people who met at a party instead of this. There's never a right time. That's the thing nobody tells you. There's just the time you get caught.
See, this is the part that gets me. He knew. The whole time he knew it was wrong, and he kept going anyway. Be honest with me in the comments. Have you ever done something you knew was a mistake right in the middle of doing it? Because I think that's more human than we like to admit.
It came apart in March. Doug got suspicious the way controlling guys always do. Not because he cared, but because he owned. She started coming home lighter, humming. And a man like that doesn't think, "Oh good, she's happy." He thinks something's mine and it's slipping. So he started checking her phone. And she'd been careful, she really had. But nobody's careful forever. There was a text, nothing graphic, just a "good night, I mean it." And "I mean it" was the part that killed us. Because you don't say "I mean it" to nobody. He didn't confront her at home. That's the part that tells you everything about Doug. He waited. He put it in his pocket and he waited until he could do it where it would cost me the most. It was a Thursday, full floor, everybody working, and Doug comes down from his office. And he's got that smile on, the barbecue smile. And he walks right up to me at the loading bay in front of 8, 9 guys, and he says, real loud, real friendly, "Hey Rick, you have a good New Year's?" And I knew, right then. My whole body knew before my brain did. And I said something like, "Yeah, quiet one." And he nods, still smiling, and he says, "Yeah? 'Cause my wife had a real memorable one." And the floor just stopped. You could feel it stop. And he leaned in, and quiet, just for me, he said, "You think I don't know, Chief? You think I'm stupid?" And then loud again for the room, "Get your stuff. You're done here." I didn't fight it. What was I going to say? There's no version of that where I'm the good guy. I slept with my boss's wife. Doesn't matter that he was cruel to her. Doesn't matter that I loved her, and I did. That's not me making it prettier. I loved her. It doesn't matter. On the floor of that warehouse, in front of those guys, I was just the coordinator who got caught with the boss's wife. That's the whole story to them. That's the joke I became.
He lost the job, the girl, his name at that place, all of it. But before he tells you how it ends, ask yourself one thing. Who's really the villain here? The boss? Her? Him? Stick around, because the last thing he says stuck with me for days.
They called it a restructuring. That's what's in my file. Position eliminated. Very clean. But everybody knew. In a place like that, everybody always knows by lunch. And Doug made sure of it. He wanted the story to travel. He wanted me radioactive. I texted her once, after, just, "Are you okay?" That's all I let myself send. And she wrote back 3 words, "Please don't. I'm sorry." And that was it. That was the last I ever heard from Marnie Beaudry. She didn't leave him. I found that out later, the way you find things out, secondhand, from Kyle, who heard it from somebody at the gym. She stayed. They sold the house, moved to Burlington, working on things. And I get it. I do. When it all blew up, I was a warm apartment with the blinds down. He was her whole life. The house, the money, the sister she'd have to explain everything to. 12 years of a life you can't just walk out of because a guy from a party made you feel like a person for a few months. I was the easy thing to cut. So she cut me. And honestly, smart. She survived it. I'm the one who's still standing in the wreckage telling strangers about it. So here's where I am now. It's been a while. I got another job eventually. Smaller place, less money, way out in Stony Creek. And I take the long way so I don't drive past the old warehouse. I don't go to Kyle's New Year's party anymore. Can't. Every kitchen counter looks like a crime scene now. And people who know the story, the few who do, they always want me to land it somewhere. They want the lesson. They want me to say she was toxic, or he was a monster, or I learned my worth. But I don't have a clean one for you, because the truth is messier than any of that. The truth is, I was a lonely man who got handed 1 warm hour on a cold night, and instead of letting it be 1 warm hour, I tried to turn it into a whole life. And I did it with somebody who wasn't mine to build a life with. And I knew, every single step I knew, and I told myself I didn't, because knowing would have meant stopping. I don't even blame the kiss. The kiss was innocent. Everybody's right about the kiss. The kiss was nothing. It's everything I did in the months after the kiss that I have to live with. If you want the lesson, maybe it's this. When life hands you a warm hour, let it be an hour. Don't try to move in. Don't try to make it pay for everything the cold ones took from you. Because some doors, the second you walk in, you can't walk back out the same man. And I walked into that one with my eyes wide open, telling myself they were closed. Her name was Marnie. She used to paint and she stopped and she didn't know why. I think about that more than anything else. Not the job, not Doug, not even the humiliation on that floor, just, I hope she started painting again. I really do. I hope somebody let her be a person without it costing her everything. Happy New Year, Spinach Guy. Yeah, same to you, Marnie. Same to you.
That one stays with you, huh? What gets me is he never played the victim. He had every excuse, and he still owned it. I knew, and I did it anyway. So tell me in the comments, did he get what he deserved or just unlucky? And if you made it this far, you know what to do. I've got another story just like it waiting. See you there.